Okay, so we have finished acoustic transducers in the last lecture, and so today we will be discussing on the gyroscopes, right? So in this lesson, we will be seeing actually two types of gyroscopes and the working principle of those two types, and an update regarding your project report and demonstration submission. So what I have done is I have extended the deadline for your report and demonstration submission by 4 months based on the new revised academic calendar. So after that has been extended after the end of your 4th semester examination. So after end of your 4th semester examination, you will be doing 5th semester practicals. So I have extended the deadline to that period. So that the deadline is before the 5th semester examination, but after 4th semester examination. So since the representative told me that some of you are having difficulties finding electronic equipments due to the COVID-19 pandemic, as a measure for coping with that, I have done that, right? So you will have to implement using the physical sensors, or in other terms, the hardware equipments. You will have to implement using them, but with the project just with a code is not acceptable. So based on that condition, I have extended the deadline. So during that time, the pandemic most probably will be over, so that you can find equipments and implement. Right. So it is, I think, 2022 January 16th, that deadline. Okay, so we'll begin this last lecture. Right. So after that, I will. My section is over. So for the end semester examination, you will get 4 questions out from what you learned from me and 1 question from Mr. Sama. And it will include this gyroscope also, the 4 questions. So you have to study all of the notes that we have discussed in order to face the examination. So you will be given 4 questions out of them. So you have to study the working principles also, even though they are not essential for project implementation, as I have told once during this lecture series. Even though the working principle is not mandatory to implement a project, you will require the knowledge to write the exam. Right. So keeping those advices and instructions in mind, we'll begin this lesson. So before learning what a gyroscope is, you have to know the meaning of orientation. So I have defined what is orientation here. So orientation is how an object is directed with respect to the coordinate system, with the center of gravity of the object at its origin. So if you take this aeroplane, for example, the center of gravity of the aeroplane lies at some place like this, so that you can put the XYZ coordinate axis, 3-dimensional axis, at its center of gravity with the origin. So 0, 0, 0 is lying at the center of gravity. So the x direction has been defined as along the body of this aeroplane. So we have 3 types of rotations with respect to each of the axes. So you may have studied these things in your first here also. So this is just a revision. So the rotation around x-axis, so these are just names. So it is called roll. The rotation around y-axis, it is called pitch. And the rotation around z-axis, it is called yaw. So roll, pitch, and yaw are the three types of, or the names for the three types of rotation around three-dimensional axis. So what is meant by rotation? So orientation is how this object is directed in space with respect to a coordinate system, like this, right? So in order to measure the orientation, we have this sensor called as gyroscope. So in the past, it was a kind of a transducer where the orientation, or how it is three-dimensional, how an object is three-dimensionally positioned in a space. So it was measured by using this gyroscope. So for instance, this object, aeroplane, can exist in the space at a fixed point, say that it is there in a fixed point, but still with that position unchanged, it can still rotate without changing the position. So the position can be fixed, but the orientation can be changed. So orientation is changed not by linear motion. The orientation will of an object will change by rotation. So rotation. So the orientation is measured not with respect to a fixed coordinate, XYZ three-dimensional axis in space, not with respect to that, but an axis with center of mass or center of gravity at the object. So when the object is moving, this coordinate system will also move. So this XYZ axis is not an inertial frame of reference. So when we were discussing about accelerometers, we have defined what is called inertial frame of reference. In inertial frame of reference, what was the condition? If it is an inertial frame of reference, then that frame of reference is either fixed or moving at constant velocity in a linear direction only. But in a non-inertial frame of reference, it can linearly accelerate or they can rotate. So this XYZ axis, which is the axis defined on an object which can move, so it will automatically become non-inertial frame of reference, because this XYZ can accelerate. That means this plane can accelerate in linear direction, or they can rotate about these coordinate axes as given here, right? So in this slide, what you need to understand is what orientation is. So it is how this object is directed with this coordinate system defined on, that means placed on the same object. So that coordinate system is a non-inertial frame of reference because it can rotate and accelerate when the object moves, right? So that is the fundamental knowledge required in order to progress through this lesson. So having understood about that, we will come into see what is gyroscopes, right? So gyroscope is the transducer, or in modern days it is sensor. Why? In modern world, many things need to be converted into electrical domain, but in the past if you go and search gyroscope, who invented them, etc., if you see the primary invention which was done in about 200 years ago, it is not a sensor, it is a transducer which converts the orientation into a reading, something like a reading, something like a reading like which you can observe on a weight scale. All the weight scales, when you step on them, you can see there is a indicator that indicator will move proportional to your weight. Like that, there is a reading, the degree or the angle. Yeah, sorry, because of a technical reason, I was disconnected. It is recording, and hope you can see the screen, right? So what I was telling you about was, so in the gyroscopes that had been invented in the initial days, so they were not sensors, they were transducers which converted or which just measured the orientation change. For instance, for if you mount a gyroscope in those days on some object, and if you rotate the object, that gyroscope can give you a reading on the angle which this object was rotated about a particular axis, right? So we will be seeing that kind of a gyroscope also. It is a transducer, but not a sensor. So usually these gyroscopes are employed not alone. So these gyroscopes are employed along with accelerometers. So these gyroscopes have applications in for basically in military applications, such as directing a missile into an enemy location, right? So to track the trajectory of the missile, or not only missile, for any other object, if you want to track the trajectory. Trajectory means the moving path of an object. So in those cases, so usually this gyroscope or the transducer which measures the orientation of an object is not used alone. So it is usually employed along with an accelerometer. So what is measured by the accelerometer is the linear acceleration of the object. So if you have a three-dimensional accelerometer in 3 dimensions, not with respect to the object's XYZ direction, but maybe another fixed referential frame, XYZ direction. So with respect to a referential frame of reference, the accelerometer will give the linear acceleration, or if it is a three-dimensional one, three-dimensional acceleration. So with the three-dimensional acceleration, and by measuring that, so by measuring the acceleration, the position of the object can be determined. For instance, if the object was at a particular place at time t, and after time t plus delta t, it can determine the position by examining the acceleration parameters or acceleration values at each x, y, and z directions with respect to a referential frame, inertial frame. It can determine the position exactly, exact position, by using accelerometer. So accelerometer can be used to determine the position. So if it is wanted, it can automatically get the velocity, just the integration of velocity. It will give us integration of the integral of the acceleration. You get the instantaneous velocity. So double integral, you get the position, right? So when you know, so when you have the acceleration, you can derive using the accelerometer reading. You can derive by using some mathematical calculation. You can derive the position of the object. So accelerometer can be used to determine the linear acceleration, velocity, and position. And with the gyroscope attached, it can measure the orientation also. So orientation plus position and velocity and acceleration. So everything will be combined to form a unit called inertial measurement unit. So this unit, that means accelerometer plus gyroscope, is used in applications such as this. Not only this, in robotics also, robotics industry, to determine the motion of the robot, exact position of the motion. For instance, if the robot wants to move from one place to another place, how the robot will move its arms or legs. So these inertial measurement units can be fixed to right. So again, this was disconnected. So I have changed my device, the laptop and the phone. So this is the first time I'm conducting lectures. So this may, I may have to change some configurations in order to solve this. So at this moment, I'm not able to do it. So where are these technical difficulties as this is the first time, right? Okay, we will continue from the moment that we stopped. So what I was telling you about is, so about this inertial measurement unit. So as I said, it is a very essential component in applications where the objects are moving. So for instance, I was describing about the robot. So I told you that these inertial measurement units can be fixed in robots to determine its orientation and position precisely. So there can be some degree of error associated with any transducer. So any transducer measurement can be erroneous, but to some extent, these will give very precise results, right? So which can be used to take decisions regarding motions. For instance, say that a robot arm is moving. So when the arm is moving, the sensors, these inertial measurement units which are fixed in that robot, will give out readings. So based on those reading values, whatever the controller, whether it is a microcontroller, whether it's FPGA or any microprocessor, whatever the thing which is controlling that unit, can take the decisions based on these sensor readings. So whenever there is motion, these gyroscope plus accelerometer units can be can come handy. But they are reading at the place which they are fixed. That's why in a robot you have to have multiple this kind of units, because multiple parts of the robot body is having different motions. Not even robot body, if you can imagine the human being. So if you place an accelerometer plus gyroscope on arm, the readings of that arm will be different to those of legs because the motions are different simply and the position is different. Right. So initially, these gyroscopes were designed just to measure only the orientation or the angular position of the object with respect to space. But nowadays in gyroscopes, not the angular position or the orientation is measured, as in accelerometers, the angular velocity is measured. So when you have the angular velocity, you can automatically derive the orientation if you know the initial orientation. You can just integrate and get the values. So integration and getting, that is part of not the that is done not by the sensor, that has to be done by the microcontroller. If the orientation is required, the microcontroller or whatever the controller which is associated with the sensor will have to integrate and get the orientation. So if the sensor is giving angular velocity, just like modern day gyroscopes. So modern day gyroscopes are actually giving angular velocity, not the angular position or this orientation. Just like accelerometers are used to determine the position. So accelerometer is giving out the acceleration. The microcontroller will have to double integrate that and get the position if the initial position is known. Likewise, so derived values or derived quantities can be measured by using these gyroscopes and accelerometers. So I selected these gyroscopes to be done at last because they the understanding of gyroscope is somewhat complex, somewhat not very complex like understanding whatever complex things like quantum physics. Not that much hard, but it is somewhat difficult to grasp at once. Right. So because the equations or the principle, as told in the beginning, it is involved in non-inertial frame of reference, specifically the rotating frame, because the object is rotating, and in that rotating object something has to be measured. So the equations defined for inertial frames of reference is not valid in non-inertial frames of reference. And new forces may be introduced because of non-inertial frame of reference. So those things we will be discussing. Right? So as I told you, as this is a non-inertial frame of reference, so due to that non-inertial frame of reference, it will give additional forces in the phasing of rotation. So due to the rotation and linear motion. So if it is only the rotation, it will give an additional force called centripetal force. If it is rotation plus linear velocity, that means an object is rotating and at the same time moving in linear direction, rotating and moving linearly. So in that case, it will give a new force called Coriolis force. This is centripetal force. That means going out from the center. This force is directed out from the center, and this force, the direction, it will depend on the direction of the linear velocity and the direction of the rotational vector, or where the angular velocity or the angular momentum is directed. So we will be discussing these two forces separately. So don't worry if you don't understand at this point. So what you need to know is, due to the non-referential frame of reference, it can give additional forces. If it is only rotating, it will give out centripetal force. If it is rotating and at the same time moving in linear direction, it will give Coriolis force. And if there is no, so even though the frame is non-inertial, if there is no external force applied on the system, so even in the inertial frame, if that inertial frame is closed system where there is no external forces, then the conservation of angular momentum must be satisfied. So what is conservation of angular momentum? That is, the angular momentum is fixed in a closed system, even though it is non-inertial. So if there is no any additional force applied on them, so then it will preserve the angular moment, right? Right. So these objects are rotating in an inertial frame. So within an inertial frame, this object is rotating. The rotating object is actually non-inertial. So with respect to the rotating object, it is non-inertial. But they are residing in an inertial frame. That means the object is within an inertial frame. So due to that, so it is inside an inertial frame. So it should preserve the angular momentum. So how these gyroscopes are going to measure the orientation is by measuring these forces. So specifically this force. So there are different types of gyroscopes. So what we will be discussing is the gyroscope, one of them actually, one of them will be measuring this Coriolis force to measure the rotation or the angular velocity. So there may be some another gyroscope which is using the centripetal force in order to measure the rotation velocity. There may be something like that. So based on the way the gyroscope is implementing, what it measures in order to measure the orientation or the angular position of the object or the angular velocity in a around a particular axis will be determined either by measuring these two forces, or there may be some another gyroscope which does not use these two forces at all. For instance, the gimbal gyroscope, it does not measure any of these two forces, but it will still measure the orientation by this principle, conservation of angular momentum. So it uses this principle in order to measure the orientation. So different types of gyroscopes will be using different types of ways to measure the angular motion or the orientation of the object. How it is rotating or how it is directed in space with respect to its own non-inertial frame of reference axis. So different gyroscopes will use different principles to measure whatever the parameter, either it is the orientation angle in space or whether it is the angular velocity. It will depend. Right. So before coming into that, we will be reminded. So these things you have already learned in your advanced level. These are not very difficult things. So the angular momentum is denoted by capital L, and capital I is the moment of inertia. That is a parameter which depends on the shape and density of this object. So the moment of inertia will be depend on them. How this mass is distributed depends on this, the shape and the material which the object is constructed of. So capital I stands for the moment of inertia, and omega is standing for the angular velocity. So this rule, this right-hand rule, it is a very important rule in understanding gyroscopes. So even if an object is rotating in the direction pointed by these four fingers of the right hand, then the direction of the angular velocity is given by the direction of the thumb. So if this one is rotating anti-clockwise direction. So this one is rotating in anti-clockwise direction, and you get the direction of the angular velocity omega, or the angular momentum capital L, angular momentum in this direction. So it is perpendicular to the plane of rotation of the object, right? So that is how. So this right hand rule is even useful in magnetism, also electromagnetic theories. Also this right hand rule is useful, and in this case also this is useful. So what is torque? So in a closed system, angular momentum is conserved. That is the principle of conservation of angular momentum states that in a rotating object, if an external force is not applied on the rotating object, its angular momentum will be conserved. That means this will keep on rotating at this same speed or same angular velocity unless there are no forces, external forces acting on this one. So in the force becomes, the force is a torque. If there is no torque, or the torque is zero, this will keep on rotating at this velocity. But if there is an external torque applied, this angular momentum is not conserved anymore. So it is not, then it will not become a closed system. It will become an open system where there is external influence. For example, if you have a disk and if you apply a torque on it, it will accelerate and it will begin to accelerate and rotate. So what happened was, by applying a torque, you change the angular momentum of the disk. So the rate of change of angular momentum is defined as torque, capital T. So unless there is no any external torque, the object will keep on rotating at the same angular velocity unless the moment of inertia is changed. So this moment of inertia, I told you, it is dependent on the shape and how the material is constructed of. So those are not changed usually unless there is temperature change or any other chemical change. So usually if an external torque is not applied, this angular momentum will be conserved. So this principle is used in some of the gyroscopes in order to measure the orientation. Right. So this is one of the way. principle of conservation of angular momentum, and these are the other two ways. That is either by measuring the centripetal force or either by measuring the Coriolis force. First, we'll take the centripetal force into consideration. So I told you this, both centripetal and Coriolis force, both are not existing or felt in inertial frame of reference. In order to have centripetal force or Coriolis force, it should be rotating. It should be rotating. So rotating means non-inertial frame of reference. So we have some definition for a force of this nature called fictitious force. Fictitious means not real. Not real. So these centripetal and Coriolis force are said to be fictitious forces because they are only in inertial frame of reference. For instance, if you are moving in a car and around, and if you are taking a bend, you will be pushed towards one side of your vehicle, car. That means you have felt a force towards the bend. That means you feel it. But if you can see from outside, so for a person looking outside the car, so for example, when you are taking the bend, if there was a person looking at you in the pavement, then he will see that there is no external force actually applying on you. No one pushed you, but you were automatically pushed. So you felt it, but the person who is outside standing cannot see a force, actual force applied on you. So then that means the person standing outside your vehicle is in an inertial frame of reference. Since you are inside the vehicle when the bend is taken, you are in non-inertial frame of reference. So you are in non-inertial frame of reference and you felt a force, and the person in the inertial frame cannot see a force, an actual force pushing you, but there is actually one felt by you. So there is a force felt by you in non-inertial frame, but the outside person cannot see a force. That means from outside your car, no one pushed you. So then this force is only existing in the inertial frame, right? Sorry, in the non-inertial frame. So when you are in non-inertial frame, the force is experienced, but not existing with respect to the inertial frame of reference. Such forces are called as fictitious forces. So both centripetal force and the Coriolis forces both are belonging to that category. Something like induced force, but don't use the word induce, it is called fictitious. So this, as I told you, the centripetal force is created only because of rotation. So if there is only rotation, so for example, take the Earth. Earth is rotating around its own axis. It is actually having a linear velocity. That means it is moving around the sun. But we'll take it as negligible for a small amount of time considered, it may be negligible. So if we say that the Earth is only rotating around its own axis, then the Earth should have this centripetal force. So here is the diagram which determines this phenomenon. So if you have then this disk rotating in anti-clockwise direction, and if you consider a particle on this disk of mass m, and the distance between this one r, Then the centripetal force is a force which is directed radially. So this is the center of this disk. So centripetal force is directed radially away from this point. So this is the the circle which is the locus of this point. That is the moving path of this point. So this is the radius of that path, and the line joining this point and center, you call it as a radius. So it is directed radially away from this this point. That's why when you take a sharp bend from your vehicle, you will be pushed towards this towards the bend where you take the actual bend. If you take this way, you will be pushed towards this way, and if you take the bend this way, you will be pushed towards left. So this is something like this fictitious force, and the magnitude. So this is the direction, and the magnitude is given by mass times omega squared r. Omega is the angular velocity. This one is rotating around this center, right? So it is directed away and having this magnitude. So if the gyroscope can measure this centripetal force somehow, so just by dividing this centripetal force by m times r and get the square root, you will get the angular velocity, right? So if you can measure the force, you can derive the angular velocity, right? That is one way. But we will not be seeing an example of a gyroscope which is using this principle to measure. We will be only seeing the Coriolis force. So this force you may have studied in your advanced level, but this force I don't think you have come across in your advanced levels. This may be a new force to you. So this is also a fictitious force, as I told you before, Coriolis force. This Coriolis fictitious force occurs in a rotating frame of reference, in other terms, the non-inertial frame of reference. As I have underlined here, when an object is rotating and moving at a linear velocity. So this is the same disk that I took in the previous example, and I have notated this angular velocity in a different notation with the round circle. That means I am indicating here this omega is directed out of the screen towards your face. That means, so if this disk is in the plane of this display, this is screen, this is in the plane of the screen, omega is coming out towards you. That means take the right hand and curl your forefingers. Then if omega is coming towards you, then this disk should rotate anti-clockwise. This disk is rotating, that means anti-clockwise. And due to some, whatever, we don't know whether it is due to an external force or whatever the reason. So usually this only one particle will move in linear velocity, but assume that this whole object is also moving at a constant velocity v along this direction. Assume this object is moving at a linear velocity v in this direction. So I'm taking just an example. This velocity could have been any other direction. This object could have been moved in this way, or in this way, or towards inside this plane, in the other direction. Any direction can be taken where this linear velocity is there. We don't know the reason. Due to some external force. So maybe it was previously moving. We don't care about why it is moving in linear direction. So if it is so moving, say a ball. So the best example that you can imagine is a spin ball, which is directed towards the batsman by a spinner. So that spinning ball is moving forward towards the batsman and at the same time rotating at the same time rotating. So what is the effect? Rotating and moving in the same in a linear velocity, this ball will experience this Coriolis force. That means how the spinners are using the ball to change direction. It is this Coriolis force moving in linear direction and rotating. So because of this rotation, so I'm taking the it is rotating in anti-clockwise direction. So we have some kind of equation to get the magnitude of this force, and not only magnitude, you can get the direction also. So 2 times mass of whatever this object. So I have just considered a particle here. So there are 10,000 thousands of particles in this object. For example, assume for simplicity, assume this as a plate, right? So there is a mass, and 2 times mass times omega, the angular velocity, and this is not multiplication, this is cross product. So you may have come across cross product in your first year. What is cross product? Cross product between A and B, that means A cross B is equal to AB sine theta in magnitude, and in direction wise, how to find the direction of the cross product between A and B? Just take the right hand rule from A to B. So if you have vectors like this, A and B, and if you get the cross product between A and B, and this angle is theta, how to get the cross product? So this is directed in this direction and this is in this direction. So where will be the direction of the resulting vector of cross product? It will be into this screen. So into this screen I denote by X. Out of the screen I denote by dot. So A cross B by right hand rule is into this screen. This is the correct one, right? So omega cross V, where what is the direction of omega? Omega is out of this screen. So now curl your fingers. Omega is out of the screen. V is in this direction along this plane. So curl your fingers from omega to V. Curl your forefingers from omega to V. If you curl your forefingers from omega is out from this screen towards you. So if you, I cannot show you because I can't turn on the video. If you curl your fingers, this omega is coming out of the screen. If you curl your fingers from omega to V, then you will see that the force F is in this direction. F Coriolis force is in this direction. So if you consider all of the points such as this, if for each and every particle, a Coriolis force F will act in this direction. So if you if a spinner spins a ball like this, for the ball there will be a force in this direction. But for an observer, in an inertial frame of reference, it will move in this trajectory because the person in the inertial frame of reference cannot experience this force. Because of that case, the person, if there is a person X here, if it is observing the direction of motion of this object, it will see that it will be going in this direction. But for if there is an observer in this point, if there is an observer in this point, so as I have given here, this is the, it will see as if it is moving in this path. It will, because of it is experiencing this force. The person here is experiencing not that force. The trajectory of the rotation felt by an observer in this object. So if an observer is looking at the center of this object, it will see that, okay, now it is always rotating, but as it is the center, it will the rotation will not come into the trajectory. Because of the force felt, it will see as if it is moving in this direction. So the field of this force, as given here, is to deflect the trajectory of the moving object. So if an object is if an object is moving and rotating at the same time, there will be a force, fictitious force called Coriolis force, which will be acting on it, given by this one. So what is the magnitude of this force? 2m omega v times sine theta. Theta is the angle between the angular velocity and linear velocity. And this v should not be mixed up with the rotational velocity. So you know that if an object is rotating, it has a rotational velocity. See, it is also noted by v. That is in this direction. In this direction, perpendicular to this radius. In this direction also you have a velocity. That is not, this v is not that rotational velocity. We don't consider that rotational velocity into consideration here. This is linear velocity, which is external. This velocity has been resulted due to some external effect, not for the rotational effect. So this v can be in any direction based on the direction which it is moving linear, which it is independent of rotation. This velocity is independent of rotation. And based on that rotation, where this Coriolis force is applying can be changed. So this F Coriolis force is perpendicular to both angular momentum and linear velocity, because you get the cross product. So cross product between A and B is orthogonal or perpendicular to both A and B. To the plane containing A and B, the cross product between A and B is orthogonal. Like that one, as this involves a cross product between omega and V, the resulting Coriolis force is perpendicular to the plane containing omega and V. That means, in other terms, it is perpendicular to both omega and v. So by measuring this force also, someone can measure the angular velocity of this object. So if you fix a gyroscope to a rotating object, so the gyroscope, if it can measure this Coriolis force, it can measure the angular velocity. How? Just divide by 2mv sine theta, right? Just divide by 2mv sine theta, then you can get the Coriolis force. So a further explanation of the Coriolis force is given here. So you can take the coordinate system as XYZ. So XYZ is the coordinate system to measure the orientation of this object. So X with this origin is located at the center of gravity of this object, at the middle of this object. This is X, this is Z, and this direction is Y. And in this case, you can see the angular velocity is directed in this direction. Angular velocity is directed in this direction means what is the direction which it is rotating? It is rotating, this cube is rotating anti-clockwise. So you can apply the right hand rule and see this omega is directed in this direction, then this should rotate anti-clockwise around its center of gravity, around in other terms around this Z axis, right? So the name of rotation you can obtain from the first slide that I told you about orientation, right? If you don't remember these names, what is the name called for rotation around Z? What is the name called for rotation around Y? What is the name called for rotation around Z? Does not matter. Okay. So in this case, this angular velocity is directed in this direction, and due to some effect, this mass is also moving in a linear velocity v along this direction. What is this direction? X. So it is moving in this direction X, and this is rotating around Z. As you can see, this omega is in Z direction, then that means it is rotating around Z. So this object is rotating around Z and moves towards X direction at a constant velocity v bar. Then from the equation that you learned ago, the Coriolis force for this object can be obtained by using this equation 2m omega cross v. So omega is this, v is this. So apply the right hand rule. Apply the right hand rule from omega to v. If you apply the right hand rule, then the resultant will be into this plane, towards this plane. Towards this plane means in positive y direction. So this positive y direction indicates go inside this screen. So that direction is the direction of this Coriolis force. So you can see this Coriolis force is perpendicular to both omega and v. Omega and v. So if you apply right hand rule from this to this, you can see Coriolis force is directed in this direction. So this is again to emphasize how the Coriolis force is obtained in magnitude and direction. Because we are going to discuss on a gyroscope which uses this Coriolis force. That's why. Okay. Now we have covered the basics which is required in order to understand this lesson. And now we will be seeing two different types of transducers. This gimbal gyroscope is not measuring any force, not Coriolis or centripetal. It is using the principle of conservation of angular momentum. Principle of conservation of angular momentum. And this is used to measure the pitch, roll, and yaw. What are these? These are just the rotation around each of the axes, X, Y, Z. So these are used to measure the rotational angle by which each of them took place. For instance, in an aircraft, if you say when it is horizontal and when it is at its natural position, if the rotational angle is 0 degrees, 0 degrees, and 0 degrees, when it is rolled for say 10 degrees, then it will be 10 degrees, 0 degrees, 0 degrees. So how to measure that? This is the instrument. This kind of thing had been invented long ago, because this does not involve any electrical instrument. So what this is having is, so this is using the principle of conservation of momentum. So it is also called the conservation of momentum of gyro. So gyro is short term for the gyroscope, I forgot to mention. And it has a spinning wheel, or in other terms called rotor. So this is the rotor. So we have two diagrams. This is the rotor and it has a spinning axis. This is the spinning axis. And this rotor is rotating around its spinning axis. Rotor is rotating around the spinning axis. And we have three this kind of rings which are called gimbal. So this rotor is suspended by means of three rings. So we have three rings, 1, 2, 3. And you can see this outermost ring is fixed to the, so this gyroscope ultimately should be fixed to some object. For example, this if it is measuring in an airplane, this should be fixed to an airplane. So the outermost gimbal or the ring is fixed to the object which the orientation is measured. And so what is meant by a gimbal? So the property of a gimbal is it should allow an object which is mounted on its base to move freely in any direction. For instance, if you take this outermost gimbal, you have two hinge points where this ring is fixed. So this ring is free to move around the outermost gimbal. This is the middle gimbal. This middle gimbal can rotate 360 degrees like this around these two hinges. That means this gimbal has 1 degree of freedom with respect to this one. It can rotate like this. And also inside this gimbal, another gimbal is mounted like this at these two hinge points. Then this innermost gimbal can rotate freely around this one. Innermost gimbal can rotate freely around this one, right? So this gimbal can rotate. So this is the middle gimbal which is fixed to this one, and this is the innermost gimbal where it is hinged at these 2 points, and it can rotate freely around this axis. Around this axis, the axis connecting this hinge point and this hinge point, around that axis, this innermost gimbal can rotate. So what is this rotation is all about? So this innermost one is a disc which is a rotor. It is rotating, and since this is a closed system, the principle of conservation of angular momentum must be preserved. That means if this is a closed system, if there is no external forces, the angular momentum must be conserved. So in order to conserve the angular momentum, so as the properties, I mean, this moment of inertia is not changed, in order to preserve the angular momentum, this disk will be fixed in space. In other terms, although this has the freedom to rotate in any direction, this will be kept fixed in space to preserve the conservation of moment. But these other gimbals will keep on rotating. This gimbal will rotate. This gimbal will rotate when the orientation of the object changes. But even though the orientation changed, as there is no change in momentum, this should not change the direction of rotation. So this will be fixed in orientation in space. So by measuring the angle which these were rotated, these two were rotated, you can measure the orientation compared with the original orientation. Right. So we'll keep on reading this. So the wheel or the rotor mounted on the innermost gimbal will have orientation remaining independent of the orientation of its support. So this is the support that I am talking about. So this rotor will maintain orientation. Why? Because of principle of conservation of angular momentum. Even though the object or the this thing changes in orientation when it rotates, this will not rotate. And you have this spin axis. This spin axis is perpendicular to the this. If you have this is the innermost. This is the innermost gimbal, right? This is the axis which is connecting that innermost gimbal, and this is spin axis is perpendicular to that. That is a fact, right? So we have more on this. So any inner gimbal. So this is the outermost one, and you have two inner gimbals. So for any inner gimbal mounted within the other outer gimbal will maintain a perpendicular relationship. So since we need three-dimensional orientation, so these gimbals are mounted such that you can have three perpendicular degrees of freedom of motion. For instance, consider this outer one. It is hinged, this gimbal is hinged at this point. That means it can rotate perpendicular to this axis. So consider the axis. So the first axis is this one. This is the first axis, which this thing is rotating. This middle gimbal is rotating around this axis. So if you consider this innermost gimbal, it is rotating around this axis. So this will be the other axis. So this innermost gimbal will rotate around this axis, and this you can see that these two axes are perpendicular. And what about the disc? Disc is rotating so around this spin axis. This disc is rotating around this spin axis. So that is the third axis. This is the third axis. So these are three perpendicular axes, and you can see there are 3 degrees of freedom. So if you take this disc, right? So if you take this disc So this disk is having 3 degrees of rotational freedom because this disk can rotate around this axis. So it is actually rotating around this axis. As the disk is in in this gimbal can rotate around this axis, so that this can rotate on this axis, around this green axis. So now it has 2 degrees of freedom. As that is hinged or fixed to this outermost gimbal, so it can rotate around this red axis. It can rotate around this axis. So this yellow disc or rotor has 3 degrees of freedom to rotate. 3 degrees of freedom to rotate. But phenomenally, this disc does not rotate in any direction because of the principle of conservation of angular momentum. Even though it has 3 degrees of freedom to rotate, it will not move to preserve the angular momentum. And this will keep on moving. For instance, if you take this innermost gimbal, it is having, so I have given it as a summary. So if this rotor is having 3 degrees of rotational freedom and its axis has 2, this one, spin axis, because spin axis is fixed to this gimbal, and this gimbal can rotate around this yellow and in turn this one can rotate around red. So around red and sorry, not yellow, around red and green, this spin axis can rotate. So it is having 2 degrees of freedom, right? So what happens is when the orientation changes, right? When the orientation changes, as this has some degree of freedom, it tries to rotate, but in order to preserve momentum, as there was no change in momentum, even though the orientation changed, this disc will keep on fixed in space. But the other gimbals, this gimbal and this gimbal, they will rotate. They will rotate, but this will not. You can show, sorry, I can show it in an animation. Right, this is how it works. Right, so you can see. So this is the outermost gimbal, and this is the middle gimbal, and this is the innermost gimbal, and you can see they are rotating. So this outermost one is the one which is rotating along with the object. When the outermost one is rotating along with the object, the others will keep on rotating along with that one. But as there was no change in momentum in space, this rotor will be fixed in space, even though it has 3 degrees of freedom. So in order to have this condition, you need to have frictionless bearings. That means, so this rotor is rotated around this spinning axis. So in order to make sure that there is no torque in the system, so this should be ideally frictionless. So it has been constructed such that this friction is negligible. So this occurs, as I told you, because of conservation of angular momentum. So by physically measuring how much each of these gimbals rotated, by physically measuring them, we can measure the 3-dimensional orientation. Right. So as given here, this will conserve the momentum not only in direction, not only in magnitude, but also in direction. That's why this does not change its orientation. that is about gimbal gyroscope. Now we will come into another type of gyroscope, which is using the Coriolis force to measure the angular velocity. So what MEMS, this term, you must remember when we were discussing about accelerometers, you will study this term, micro electromechanical systems. That means in micro level type size, and these are electromechanical systems. That means there are moving parts and electricity is involved in these things. In the previous gyroscope, there was no electricity involved. It just used the physical motion, the principle of conservation of momentum to measure the orientation. But in modern devices, such as, so in your mobile phone, you have an accelerometer and a gyroscope. That's why when you, in the mobile phone, you have an option called something like auto rotate or something. Yes, portrait. In my mobile phone, I have portrait. So if I say portrait, or if I turn on auto rotate, that means when I change the orientation of my mobile phone. So you since you may be having a smartphone, you can experience this. So you can turn on the screen and you can turn on auto rotate. When you change the orientation from portrait to landscape, the screen changes. How does this mobile phone detects that? This gyroscope. So do you think that this mobile phone is having a gimbal gyroscope? No. What the mobile phone may have, because the mobile phone size is very small, you cannot have very big sensors embedded in a mobile phone. So this kind of gyroscopes come in handy when embedding in devices. So this is one of the type. This is not the only type. You can download the datasheet and have a look at this gyroscope. This is produced by this manufacturer, Analog Devices. This is not the only gyroscope in the world, but it is a good gyroscope which uses micro electromechanical systems. So in micro electromechanical system, it is in very small scale and moving and electrical parts are involved. If you can remember the MEMS accelerometer, you had this similar kind of thing. You had a mass and you had the springs, right? So we will see how this micro electromechanical MEMS gyroscope functions. So this is the frame of this MEMS system, right? So for example, this is a frame, and this frame will be fixed to the device. For instance, take the mobile phone. This frame will be fixed to the mobile phone, whatever the device which you are going to measure the orientation or the angular velocity, right? So inside this one, what you have is called a proof mass. It is proof mass, and we call this one as resonating mass. Why it is called resonating? Because it will move in either direction. So there is a created motion here. That means you have some springs, so these springs are here, there as dampers, right? So there is artificially created motion in this mass. This mass is vibrating here. So if you give an initial motion in one direction, it will start to oscillate between this direction and this direction, this direction and this direction. right? So when it is going in a particular direction, so you can calculate an average velocity for a particular direction. So when it is going in this direction also, you can have an average velocity. So this is something like a mass. So this is an object which is linearly moving in this direction and in this direction. And if you have this whole object rotating, if you have this whole object rotating, then what will be the effect? An object is rotating, and at the same time, so this object is only rotating, but this mass, resonating mass will, this resonating mass, as this is inside this frame, this non-inertial frame which is rotating, this will now rotating and moving in linear direction. Rotating and moving in linear direction. So rotating and moving in linear direction, you get a Coriolis force. That is, so just by measuring the Coriolis force, you can measure the rotation, omega, because in the Coriolis force equation, you have omega, right? So here it is said that the proof mass is machined from polysilicon materials. That is the material which this is made of. And it is connected to this frame using springs. And it is resonating, right? So it will be resonating in this direction, and it will go in this direction and come in this direction. So it will be oscillating. And you can calculate an average velocity. I mean, the manufacturer will tell you the average velocity of this one. Right. So this is the working principle of this one. In order to understand the working principle of this MEMS gyroscope, you need to understand what Coriolis force is. I hope you understood in my previous explanation. If not, you may even understand when I am describing this now, right? So I told you that this mass is moving in this and this. So when this is moving in this direction, it is having linear velocity in this direction. Assume that, so this is the gyroscope, and the object which this gyroscope is attached to, for instance, this mobile phone, attached to, is rotating in anti-clockwise direction. This is rotating in anti-clockwise direction. Okay, now take your right hand and curl your forefingers in anti-clockwise direction. So you will see that the thumb will be directing towards your face, out of the screen. That means omega is out of the screen. Omega is out of the screen. Out of the screen is minus y direction. So we are considering the case when the mass is moving in. So here I have defined the XYZ non-inertial frame of reference coordinates for this MEMS gyroscope. For instance, this may be at a place like this point. This XYZ coordinates. So it is moving in Z direction, in linear direction, and omega, what is the direction? It is coming out of the screen, that means minus y direction. And so this frame or this object or this gyroscope is rotates in anti-clockwise direction. If we say it precisely, it is coming out of the screen minus y direction. So how to find the Coriolis force? You can find, so the direction of the Coriolis force will be the cross product of omega and v. So omega is out of the screen. So you can curl your fingers from out of the screen, that means minus y direction, this direction to Z, this direction to Z. So when you curl your fingers, so I'll just do and tell you. So this is the direction of omega, and this will be the direction of This will be the direction of V. So when you curl your fingers from this to this, from right hand rule, you will get F in this direction. So that means this proof mass will experience a force F Coriolis given the magnitude given by 2m omega V sine this one. So in this case, the direction is 90 degrees. So sine 90 is 1. So it will be 2m omega V. 2m omega V magnitude. This will experience a force towards this direction, left. In this case, when it is moving in this direction, so this V bar stands for the average velocity. So instantaneously it will have some velocity V, and to get the average force which acted on this mass when it is moving in this direction, we get the average velocity, right? Okay. Right. So that is when this mass is moving in this direction. Similarly, you can deduce where this Coriolis force is acting when the mass is moving in the other direction. So when the mass is moving in the other direction, still we are considering the case which this object is rotating anti-clockwise, such that from the right hand rule, omega is in this direction, and now V is in this direction. Okay, now curl your fingers from omega to V. So omega is out of the screen into V, out of the screen towards V. So you get out of the screen towards V, you get from right hand rule in this direction. So F Coriolis force will be towards right direction. So in this case, it will be towards X direction, positive X. Previously, it was towards negative X. So this is very simple thing to understand if you understood about Coriolis force. So how to measure this Coriolis force in this MEMS system is the other aspect that you need to consider. So if you can remember the lesson on accelerometers, in MEMS accelerometer, the acceleration was measured by measuring the differential capacitance. The differential capacitance was proportional to the acceleration in accelerometer, not here. In accelerometer, the differential capacitance was proportional to the acceleration. Similar thing is used here. So when this, so this as this is the one which was only moving, only this object will experience a Coriolis force. This outer frame is not experiencing a Coriolis force because the outer frame simply did not have a linear velocity. Only this proof mass had linear velocity. Proof mass and these is springs. The springs are attached to the proof mass. So the springs and proof mass only will experience a Coriolis force in this direction. So due to that Coriolis force, this will tend to move towards this one, as this is attached to this box. Due to that force, this box will be tried to move towards right. So this box is also held by some other four springs which are oriented perpendicular to these springs. So as the Coriolis force is acting in this direction, this will try to move this mass in this direction. This square will be tried to move in this direction, so attached to this frame, so if you consider this frame, So this is this thing you can consider as the moving frame, and this frame as the reference frame. So this reference frame is actually rotating, only rotating, but not linearly moving. So this is this outer square is a non-inertial frame. This is not fixed in space. This outer square is not fixed in space. Actually, it is rotating in space. When rotating, as this is also linearly oscillating, due to the force experience, the inner frame will try to be moved towards this way. So due to that motion, so there are capacitance plates attached to the inner frame. And there are capacitance plates attached to this reference frame. As the reference frame is not linearly moving, it is actually moving. I mean, it is rotating. As the outer frame is also, I cannot say it is stationary because it is rotating. But it is not having a linear motion in this direction. So in terms of linear motion, this outer frame is stationary. In terms of linear motion, this inner frame is not stationary, it is moving towards this way. So the capacitance plates attached to the moving frame is moving along with that, such that this will move towards this way, such that the capacitance between these two plates will decrease, the capacitance between these two will increase, such that there will be a differential capacitance due to the motion. So what happened? What is initially? So you can see initially when this mass is not moving, the distance between this moving plate and these two fixed plates are same. So the differential capacitance is 0. Here, when there is Coriolis force, why this Coriolis force happens? Because when it is rotating and it is having a velocity. So when both of them are there will be a Coriolis force. And that Coriolis force, you can see, can be measured. It is proportional to the displacement of this capacitor. So what happens actually is the displacement is proportional to the differential capacitance, and the differential capacitance is proportional to this Coriolis force. And you can see from this equation, Coriolis force is proportional to the angular velocity. So from that one, you can measure the angular velocity. That is the thing you need to understand. And what I said is given here as the summary. So you can see these are the stationary plates and these are the moving capacitor plates. So with respect to this gyroscope frame, with respect to this one, this is moving in either in this or this, based on the direction of this proof mass, the direction which this one will move will change. So this displacement of the resonating mass and its frame, this frame, so it will be due to the Coriolis effect, and it will be this Coriolis effect or this force will be measured through this capacitive sensing elements. So by measuring the differential capacitance, you get the magnitude of the Coriolis force, right? So these capacitive sensing elements are nothing but silicon beams just integrated with two sets of stationary silicon. So these things you already know because I have already done it in the accelerometer lesson, right? So when this is at fixed distance, I mean equal distance, the differential capacitance is 0. When it is moving, I mean this plate is displaced from this place, it will have a differential capacitance, right? So in summary, I have given how this proportionality works. So differential capacitance, so what will be measured? So the output is an electrical output. That electrical output is proportional whatever the thing displayed, if it is displayed on a screen, that is a measure of differential capacitance. Higher the differential capacitance, higher will be the electrical output. So the differential capacitance is proportional to the displacement of this one. How much this one was displayed. If it was not displayed, there won't be differential capacitance. So the displacement, how does the displacement take place? Displacement takes place due to the Coriolis effect. So displacement took place, I explained, because it took place because of Coriolis effect. And you can see from this equation, Coriolis effect is proportional to the angular velocity. You can subject angular velocity like this one from this equation. So F is equal to F Coriolis over 2mv sine 90, because in here the direction, the angle between omega and v is 90. Where it is omega? So omega, this is rotating in anti-clockwise position. It is coming out of this screen, and this is either going this way or this way. So out of this screen and this direction is perpendicular. So it is sine 90. So omega, you can get the value for the angular velocity by this one, right? So you can calibrate this instrument for known. So you first, when you calibrate this instrument, you have to know the angular velocity and calibrate this one. Then for unknown angular velocity, you can measure. Simple. Right. So this is another diagram which states the same thing in a different way. So it says that if you have V and omega in this direction, so the Coriolis force, you can get the cross product of this one, that is V cross omega. So the Coriolis force will be in this direction, and the magnitude and direction will be given by this equation. So an example has been there. So this is the proof mass, right? This is the proof mass, and this is the these are the two plates which cause this proof mass to move either in this direction or in this direction. Proof mass is moving in this direction or this direction. So we have a rotation in this direction. So from the right hand rule, the angular velocity is coming out of this screen. So when you get the cross product between omega and v, so omega is out of the screen towards this v. From right hand rule, you can see the induced force or the Coriolis force will be in this direction. So the mass will move in this direction. This is one view and this is the other view. If it is rotating, omega is in this top direction, and it is, so these are the driving plates. There is another plate here. So this proof mass is moving in this direction. So again, use the right hand rule from omega to driving velocity, then you get the Coriolis force in this direction. Again, same thing. Again, same thing stated here. Right. So if you understood the first slide on Coriolis force, you must understand everything. Right. So that is all about sensors and transducers theory and lecture. So I will upload this video also to YouTube channel, and you can watch it. And I will upload the presentation or this one's PDF also later. Right. So the summary of the exam was, I told you, I will give 4 questions from the sections that I have told. Go through the lessons and come to the examination, and the deadline of the project I have extended to January 16th. And if you have any question regarding this lesson, you can ask. Right. So if you don't have, you can leave. And so another message, you have one mid-semester evaluation also before the end semester. That will be also from the section that I taught, and from one question from Mr. Saman, I think on measurements and errors, that section. That is about mid-semester. And those things will be not now, after this pandemic is over, those things will be conducted. Right, so then thank you for participating.